Hey, Tony Gas is here. Now y'all got to forgive me for being in the dark. My AC man on the way, so I'm keeping my lights off because gotta get some Freon put in the AC, and still getting the office ready. Furniture coming in. Couch just came in. Still waiting on stuff from the wall to come in. But got a great question and wanted to touch on this. And the question is, as you see in the title, why do men ask if you've ever been married? And I want you to understand that one thing about men is we like Carfax reports. We like resumes. We like rap sheets. We like to see the history of something. The sole reason for a Carfax report is to appease men. That's just how we are. And there's a term that guys use in regards to women. Guys say, gotta check her Carfax. That's why the term body count, that was also created by men, keeping up with the body count. The reason why it means something to men more so than women, it means something to some women, but a lot of times women accept the fact that men are the way that men are, and a lot of women make excuses for the behavior of men, and it wouldn't be it's an excuse, but it's also an explanation because society is one-sided in a lot of ways, and as men we are coddled and we are entitled when it comes to sex. It may not be that way when it comes to providing and having to take care of family, without praise or reward for the most part. But when it comes to sex, and I believe that's why the countries have made that so, to where if a man provides and he breaks his back and he doesn't, it's not really understood by the kids what this roof over their head and this food on the table means, then a man should be able to go and sow his wild oats and spread himself thin sexually, and it's condoned. And the reason why it's condoned or promoted or kind of slap on the wrist in a lot of places is because those who are in power can't control themselves. And that leads to a man spreading ourselves thin, but yet wanting a woman to be very solid and to be very exclusive. And men are territorial. The fact that men are territorial also shows you why we have so many gang wars in the streets and why we have so many country wars. You rarely see a woman call war. In the history of time, we probably can count on our hands how many times a woman has called for a war. Most of the time, it's the man hitting the red button, and most of the time, it's a man that's in power. Now, there are times where a man is in power, but he is influenced by a woman to make a move. But typically, when a woman in history is shown beside a man, she's operating from a space of empathy. Now, there are examples in the Bible where a woman is like, hey, off with his head. And that lets us know women are not innocent, and a lot of times a woman could be conniving and be right there playing the game and doing what she want to do. But for the most part, a man is ready to fire off. He ready to swing. Just like when you look at the youth in school, you see two guys, they walk up on each other without saying a word. They swinging. You watch two young ladies, they might argue for 5 minutes, screaming and yelling, and not a single punch is thrown. So it's good to understand the dynamics. When we asking these questions, you always have to use history. You got to use history. You got to use patterns, and this will better help you understand humans. So while this seems like such a simple question of why do men ask if I have been married, seem like a simple question, but there's a lot of history and a lot of societal programming that goes into that. And so I'm gonna read the question because I'm doing customer service right now, sending out the invoices for the half hour sessions. And the question says, like, is it frowned upon to have been married before? I was married for 9 years, but it kind of makes me want to say no because I feel like I'm being judged unless he's been married before. Online dating. It also seems like these women do pretty wild things for whatever reason, and I am nowhere close to wild like that. Do men like promiscuous women? Like I had a few guys tell me that women actually put their mouth in their behind and they liked it. Like it's too much nowadays. Make you want to just stay single. Thanks for all you do. Now that email, went a little left there. But yeah, women do wild things, and it does get a little wild out there. And I believe that's coming from the books that women are reading. You got just a lot of lonely, quirky, different, awkward, weird writers. A lot of times, fiction writers are putting these narratives out there, and we are what we read, we are what we watch. And so a lot of this erotica is coming from books because it's not a natural, just a natural inclination. If a woman understands hygiene at all, and we're going off a little side tangent, if a woman understands hygiene and if a woman has ever had a son, then a woman knows that it's not the smartest idea for her to lick a man booty hole because most men do not know how to clean a booty hole and most men do not clean a booty hole. So a woman licking booty hole basically means she eating feces. That means she eat feces and she enjoy eating feces. Because it's going to be very rarely that a little boy that grows up into a grown man who has not watched his booty hole his entire life gonna start watching the booty hole as an adult. And then although he may do that, that should not be a pleasurable experience. And so the fact that it is make you wonder, okay, fella, what else do you like back there? Okay, all right. And so now back to the question at hand, before we went off on a side tangent, back to the question at hand about why do men ask if you're married? Let me tell you, to have been married is actually a good thing. What a man is asking, what a man is saying in Manglish when a man says, have you been married? He's essentially saying, have you ever been chosen? Has a man ever deemed you worthy of him vowing to God that he is going to love you until death does you part? Because one thing that we all know as men is that that is a very huge commitment. And that when you give your word should be your bond. So whether you are Christian or not, if you give your word to love someone until death does you part, and then you go back on your word, you feel like less than a man because your word was not your bond. Yes, there are situations and circumstances and events that occurred that made you change what you said, and you may have grounds as a man to end the marriage because of infidelity of some sort, but it still is not an easy thing for 99% of men to commit the marriage and then go through a divorce. So when a man asks a woman, have you been married? He is really asking you, do you have a stamp of approval? Do you have references? Do you have a history that speaks to you being worthy and valid? Now, that is very offensive and kind of hurtful and shocking to single women who have never been married. But it is true. It is true. Listen to me. It is true. If a woman crosses a certain age and like 40 and she's never been married, it is true that most men will wonder what is wrong with her. Most men will wonder, well, is she crazy? And crazy could be good and bad, because on the good crazy would be she's a religious nut. And there's a good religious nut and there's a bad religious nut. So the good religious nut is that she is saving herself until marriage. The bad religious nut is that she speaks in tongues in the grocery store and she prays for any and everybody, any and everywhere, like a Pharisee. And she cannot have a conversation without quoting 9 or 10 Bible scriptures. That's a bad religious nut. And so, if a man meets a woman and she is qualified, meaning that she has the looks, she has the 3 B's: the brains, the brand, and the body, and she has never been married, then he is going to assume it is because of her standards. If he talks to her and spends time with her and he sees that she's not crazy, but he tries her, try to sleep with her, try to touch her body and these things, and she doesn't allow it, then that lets him know, oh, she is single, because 99% of men don't have the level of standards that she has. Now, if a woman is lacking in one of the areas of the 3 B's: brains, brand, body, then a man will say she is single because she lacks a brand, or she is single because she lacks the body, or she is single because she lacks the brains. And so that will explain her singleness. If she has brains, brand, body, and he tries to sleep with her within the first month or so, and she sleeps with him, then it lets him know that she's not single because of her standards. It now lets him know she's single because of a lack of standards. Because men, most men, real men, want a woman that's going to challenge us and push us. The last thing that we want is a woman that sleeps with us the first time we try to sleep with her. That is the last thing a man wants. The last thing a man wants is a woman who wants to lick booty hole before being married. It's different if a woman is married and she wants to swallow, she wants to lick booty, she wants to suck toes, she wants to do it. When you're married, then there's nothing off limits, because that's all you got. All y'all got is each other, supposedly, for the rest of your life. So have fun. But before marriage, when you're doing ungodly things before marriage, outside of marriage with this man, it lets him know that his kids are not the first kids that you have swallowed. It lets him know that his feces is not the first feces that you have licked up. It lets him know that his pubes that you just chewed and swallowed is not the first pubes you chewed and swallowed. Now, y'all forgive me for talking like this, but we all grown and we got to be real, because this stuff is happening and y'all is catching herpes in the mouth because the church not talking about this. And so we need to address these things, and this is why I'm thinking about getting Tony Tube. I got a call with the app people today, but they're charging too much money, so I might have to start a fundraiser, because they want $12,000 a year up front to get started. And I'm like, I ain't got it for you. Now, if one of y'all is a multi-millionaire, could loan me 12K, then we might go into business. But listen to me. So, and when I get on Tony Tube, now it's gonna be real and raw and uncut. So get your mind right. So now listen to me. This is what a man is reading. So actually, when a man says, "Have you been married?" and you say yes, that's a great thing. It's a great thing. It's a good thing. A good man, a real man. Now, a grown boy who, he's just kind of warped, then he may look at it as a bad thing if he's jealous of the fact that another man has saw you as worthy to commit to you for life, and then it didn't work out. If he has a problem with that, he crazy. He honestly is crazy. Like, you need to run if he got a problem. If he make a big deal about that, he crazy, because that's actually a good thing. especially if the man that you were married to was half decent. Now, if you was married to like a super bomb, then again it invalidates the marriage. Like if this man had, just an air mattress and nothing at all under the sun going for itself, and you was 18, then it's kind of invalidated. But if the man was a grown man, he's capable, could pay his bills, things of that nature, it look a little different. And then also, it's a lot of nuances in there. So if you were married 30 years, now that's a little different than being married 5 years. But even being married 5 years, it's a good thing. But there's a line where a man could see it as a bad thing. Because one thing we understand as men is that the longer a woman is with a man, the more comfortable she gets. And so the more kids she gonna swallow, and the more pubes she gonna eat, and the more feces she done licked. And so a man start to understand that. So if you say you've been married 30 years, then the image is gonna start to run through his head of what exactly all happened in 30 years. And I know women may have the mentality to say, well, that doesn't matter. That's the past, is the past. You done been with other women, and I ain't thinking about what all you did with them. But even women will entertain those thoughts sometimes and say, oh, well, I know I ain't the first woman you didn't, ate the peach cobbler from, and all of this. And although it may just be a sentence and just a little fleeting thought, there are women who get mad that their man ever had another woman. Or when she experienced her man in a way that she enjoys, it could be upsetting or unsettling to think about another woman having had that same pleasure from the mouth of her man. And then especially if it's in the same city and she bumping into that woman in the grocery store. So the same way men feel those things, women could feel those things as well. And what I try to tell women is that because men are territorial, anything that you feel as a woman, you got to multiply it by 10 to understand how a man feels about it, because we are way more territorial. And the proof of that is the fact that we've gone to war since the beginning of time, and the fact that your nephews and sons are a target in the streets. And some of you watching this video have lost a son or a nephew or a husband or a baby daddy or ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, or somebody to the streets, to gang violence. And so that is proof that men are territorial for a lot of times for no reason at all. Like, why are we territorial about 63rd Avenue and 64th Avenue, or 63rd Street and 64th Street, when we don't own either street? And we got to pay property taxes for the rest of our life if we do own the house. Why are we taking lives over land that is not ours and that will never be ours as long as property taxes is a thing? So why somebody got to die over that? That is proof that men are territorial. And that's why these things have these nuances. So if you've been married, proudly say yes, you've been married. Don't shy away from that. Don't lie about that, because if you lie about it and the man just happens to go search the records and he finds out, or he meets somebody who knows you and they say, oh, I knew her ex-husband, now you done for good. Because once you lie to a man, he'll never trust you again. That's one thing that you lose forever when you lie to a man. So it's better to be honest, and understand this. Being honest also means saying none of your business. So if a man asks you a question you don't want to answer, say that's none of your business. And I'm not asking you that question. So don't ask me questions that I don't ask you. And when you can be blunt with a man and real with a man, just like how I just said it, you will get that man's utmost respect. A real man will respect you. Now, a grown boy, he's gonna get mad, he's gonna get offended, he might storm off and never talk to you again. But a real man, respects a real woman who can stand her ground, speak her mind, and be straight up. And stand on that. Don't say it today and then tomorrow come back. Well, okay, I want to answer the question that you asked me yesterday. You know, it was a little intrusive. I would like to answer the question for you just out of all, I'm like, no, you done lost everything then. You done lost everything. All respect gone out the window. Hey, this Tony Gaskin. God bless you. We'll talk soon.